In a year that saw us see Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, the fantastic remake of Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man 2, some God of War Ragnarok DLC, just some good stuff in gaming, and some terrible stuff in gaming like Lord of the Rings Gollum and King Kong. The one game that I think is going to stay with us is The Day Before. And not for any good reasons. I mean, by this point, you guys obviously know how awful the game was. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up because there's been some more developments. There have been ex-developers talking about how things went in the studio. I wanted to go over that for a little bit. But before I get there, I just want to say, this game was always going to be bad. And after reading what I read, like 100% was always going to be bad. And I believe that the heads of Fnstatic knew that, intimately knew that, and did not care. And if you guys have seen my earlier videos about this game in particular, you knew I had my reservations because just looking at it, there was no way it was going to be the game they said it was going to be, because they were a small studio trying to put out a AAA experience that no one else has done. They wanted to give you the graphical fidelity of The Last of Us 2, but in an online MMO? How was that going to work? Spoiler alert, it didn't. We have this first article from the Gaming Bible, and it's talking about how, well, you can read for yourself. The Day Before volunteer dev says everything about the game was a lie, which is something that we, all knew. But it's interesting to see exactly what they were talking about. And so this beginning part talks about what I kind of just said, how the Day Before trailer was akin to The Last of Us, but it actually came out like shit. And unlike The Last of Us Factions that isn't going to come out, that probably would have been good, this game did come out and was terrible. So bad, the fact that Steam is doing a day after survival game bundle. If you purchase The Day Before, you can apply for a refund on Steam regardless of how many hours you spent playing the game. But one of the people who worked on the game went by the name of Rob Wolf B, and they said, I was their community manager assistant who had the head moderator role on their Discord, which should have been a paid position to begin with, but I was blinded by them. The user said they were eventually kicked from the role for working too slowly. All volunteers reportedly had to sign an NDA with their personal information and social media platforms. That's crazy to say that you were working too slowly so you got kicked out of the role when this game was delayed 3 times. And I doubt it was because a community manager wasn't doing their job properly. Rob then says that they were treated like crap, and for every trailer, gameplay, or video in general that was released, we all had our thoughts, but nobody wanted to speak against them. Turns out everything was a lie, and all I did was for nothing. For all the work I've done, all I received was prop coins, virtual currency, and another game they have, Prop Night, some keys, and a thank you. I hope everyone is receiving their money back. I also hope someone will file a lawsuit or something because of all the lies. I think that will happen. There's no way that they're gonna get away scot-free doing this to anybody. They lied to the consumers, and apparently they lied to their own developers whom they didn't pay. And I had suspicions that that was the case because when the game was first being talked about, we never knew who was actually really working on it in terms of actual developers. And then you heard rumors about they were using just volunteer based things, what turned out to be true. And now it's they didn't even get paid. They got paid with virtual currency for another game. That's if you were working on Gears of War, and instead of getting paid with money, Epic was here's some V-Bucks. Go play our other game. Go play Fortnite. To assume that these developers would actually play Prop Night, and so you get some money from that is so insane. But that's the level of management and direction the studio had. And this isn't even the worst part. There's another article that we're going to get to that goes into much greater detail, let you know just how fucked up the studio was. All right, so this one's from Eurogamer, and this is Day Before controversies continue as former employee says it was never an MMO. This article is very well written, and it's not saying the other one wasn't, but this has a lot more detail and other information that I looked into is kind of compiled into one place. So if you guys want to read this whole article for yourselves, you can do that. I'm really gonna just go over it in like broad strokes. But one part I really want to focus on is just the fact that no one from the team knows why they called it an MMO. Like, it was never planned to be that. They were making it more akin to DayZ, a little bit mixture of Last of Us. As you saw from the original trailers, kind of give credence to that idea that this was supposed to be basically a zombie survival game, and that's it. None of this MMO extraction bullshit. And right here, they're talking about there were no RPG mechanics implemented. There was no possible way to put a lot of people in the world or make the world bigger. From the beginning, the idea was that the servers would be under 100 people. That's not an MMO. No clans, no raids, closed hubs. It's been that way for over 2 years. So going back to what I was saying earlier, watching the original trailers, yeah, of course it was never going to be an online MMO. Because again, there's no MMO that has that kind of fidelity. Look at World of Warcraft. That game has one of the most popular MMOs of all time. It looks like PS2 graphics because it has to. Because it has to do so many things. Not only is it being hosted on multiple servers and have multiple people on those servers, you need to be able to load stuff quickly as possible. You need to be able to have CPU management. Look at Final Fantasy. What was it? 14. The Realm Reborn. It's a fun game, but it doesn't look like crazy. It doesn't look like Final Fantasy 16. And what Fnstatic was promoting is that you're going to get essentially, let's say again, The Last of Us 2 as an MMO. Even Naughty Dog couldn't do that, and that was just for their faction stuff. But they were promising that they were able to do that, so of course that was never going to happen. And now you see why, because that was never the plan, at least from the people who were developing the goddamn game. They were just making this game to be like it's like a Last of Us DayZ type thing, but like under 100 people, which, as they said, is not an MMO. An MMO with like 100 people with no clans, no raids, no nothing is hilarious. All right, so back to the article. They also mentioned in more detail about how, like the other article talked about how the community manager got kicked out. This one goes into more detail with that. It says, a lot of good ideas from our team were disregarded because, I'm not going to pronounce the names, but those are the people who owned the company. Fnstatic didn't approve them. The source said, highlighting voice chat as an example. Mind you, this was supposed to be an MMO with no voice chat. No way to communicate with people in your clan that don't exist because clans weren't a thing. Anyone who complained too much was kicked off the team. A lot of stupid ideas were implemented, removed, and re-implemented because the brothers thought they knew better than us about what people wanted. A huge amount of time and work was wasted because jobs had to be done and redone, they went on. Disagreeing with the founders' opinions, even if it seemed obvious, risked you being fired. When it came to heated disputes, contracts were usually terminated. Employees often avoided direct conflict with them because they were afraid of losing their jobs. That doesn't sound like the recipe for a successful game or a successful environment. Now, seeing all that, it makes sense why the game was delayed so much. It makes sense that they were making up excuses for the delays, like, oh, we can't show actual gameplay trailer because we're being sued by this clock app. Instead of just changing the name and just showing the trailer, oh, we can't show it, sorry you guys. And then it was the one before that, it's like, hey, we're fine-tuning things, we're polishing things up, so we're gonna push the game back again. Realizing now that in the reality, it was so poorly managed that people had to redo work because they took shit out that they should have put in and then put shit in that they should have taken out. Like, it's, oh my God, like, I didn't think this game could be worse. And then you look at what's happened behind the scenes and it's way more fucked up than you thought it was. There was no level of good communication or management. Like, to get rid of the voice chat option, to have people so afraid to talk about basic stuff that they would get their contracts terminated if the owners just disagreed with them, that's crazy. That's crazy. What's the point of working with a team if that's going to happen? Going back and seeing the initial trailer and the following trailers with information that it was never supposed to be an MMO, I can actually see what direction the original game was supposed to be in. But them listing it as an MMO completely derailed them. I honestly believe that had they just said, yeah, this is just gonna be like maybe a co-op 5 players max, like more of like a Remnant from Ashes situation, I think this game would have been highly successful because you could have maintained that level of fidelity and people still would have been interested in it. Remnant 2 got really good reviews, but they felt like they had to do this big, huge, ambitious project, and they had none of the skill sets required. They weren't even paying people. There was a report that Yahoo found out that is in this article that I'm going to link you guys to. But in that report, they spent like $200,000 on their salary, $308,000 on traveling expenses. You look at their expense report, nothing about paying people, nothing about overhead for employees or anything like that. No, like healthcare, Medicare, nothing for employees. Oh man, The Day Before is such a fascinating tale of just scammery. It's just scammery in the highest form. I said this game was a scam. Even though it came out, it's still a scam because they didn't give people what they wanted. They didn't even give people what they were expecting. They just put out an asset flip from the Unity store that was garbage. And people who played the game were able to confirm that it was in fact just a bunch of asset flips. Like, there was nothing about this game that was ever going to be good because the game that they were working on was never actually released. Again, I feel like if they would have actually released like, hey, we like Remnant, so we're gonna just do that one, or we like Hunt Showdown, so we're gonna just do it like that, it would have been like a probably fantastic or or a decent game. Hi, this is editor me, and I forgot to put this in the actual video, but the social media account for Fnstatic was still up and currently is still up after the announcement of the studio closure, and they were being grilled by consumers, which rightfully so, and their response to the criticism was, shit happens. I cannot imagine a better button on this story than just ending it with shit happens. I know the social media manager was getting paid in like prop bucks or popcorn. They didn't give a fuck. But I love the schadenfreude of the situation. Just like, instead of getting your lawyers ready because you're absolutely getting sued, you have your social media manager just still tweeting out to the community, making it seem like, oh, we're just the plucky underdogs and everyone's picking on us, instead of like these scammers that they are. I hope the developers, like they have people who worked on this game, have a long prosperous future, but the guys in charge of everything, I hope they get fleeced for everything they're worth, to be completely honest. Like, holy shit. But they refuse to do that, and now they're in a situation where they are definitely going to be sued. Like, I cannot imagine them not being sued. I cannot imagine us not hearing about a lawsuit within the next like month or two, because there's either going to be a class action or they're going to be sued by maybe Mytona for lying about shit. But there's no way they get away with this. There's no way they get away with this. Ah, man. Video games.